So we're having Q&A today. So first question, subhanAllah. Difficult one, but it needs to be done. When you said that hadith does not meet the Western standards of academia, what does that mean? Is hadith applicable for us as Muslims? So obviously, brothers and sisters, this goes without saying that there is no Islam without the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. This is understood. Allah didn't just reveal a book, He sent us a messenger to explain the book. And we base our religion. There is no religion without the two sources of the Qur'an and the Sunnah. And we base our religion on the Sunnah, and the Sunnah is preserved through the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. And the science of hadith is a separate category, and it is a science that Muslims should legitimately take pride in. And I think this is an obvious reality for all of us as Muslims. And as somebody who's been preaching and teaching for quite literally over 30 years, I don't think you would be hard-pressed to find a single dars or khutbah or fatwa that I've ever given in which I don't quote Quran and hadith. And of course, our scholars have developed a rigorous method of verifying hadith. But the question once again comes, before I answer, let's take a step back here. And this isn't just about this one question. You are my students here, you come to my masjid here. I want to teach you to think broader, to think a little bit more critically. So this isn't just about the one issue here. There's lots of problems taking place on social media. And one of the problems that social media has exacerbated, it's always been there, is to misunderstand a snippet or a quotation. The problem of being misquoted always happens. It's just the reality. But one of the principles that our religion teaches us, in fact, it is a part of usul al-fiqh. One of the principles our religion teaches us is that al-kalamu ala muradi qa'ilihi. Speech is to be understood in light of what the speaker intended. Now, this isn't just for me. This isn't just for this issue. I want you to start, as you move on in life, this isn't the only time something's going to happen with you or with other people. I want you to start thinking a bit more nuanced. Look at the speaker, look at the audience, look at the context, look at the overall track record. Lots of things need to be looked at. Let me give you an example every one of you at Epic is familiar with. Our masjid has been targeted by the far right, by a Zionist organization for the last 8 months. You know this. How do they target us? How do they target us? They take snippets, not just from me, from all of our speakers. Those snippets, those phrases, because you're in this ambience of a masjid, you fully understand them. But when you take those snippets and put them to a non-Muslim audience, and you paint them with a different painting, it is very easy to make a sinister connotation. They do this with me all the time. I say, for example, that, I don't know, Allah will protect His religion. Okay, He will. And this clip is going to go out and say, oh look, He is threatening anybody who doesn't, follow Islam. I say that the Prophet predicted Islam is going to spread east and west. Oh, this is triumphalism. He wants to knock out America and this and that. Like, you can say the most innocuous, innocent things. But because I'm speaking with some Arabic phrases, I say Allah, I say the Prophet, I use the word Sharia. They love whenever they say the Sharia. They say, oh, he wants to apply the Sharia over here. So when they do that, all of you feel a legitimate sense of frustration and anger. Come on, just do a bit of homework, do a bit of research. Understand this is a speaker who has a track record. Now, realize that the same also happens from within our community. The exact same thing. Taking an aspect, taking a quotation, not looking at the context, and then quite literally reading in much more than what possibly could be intended. And this isn't just about me. It's not about just my particular snippets. It's just the reality of what it is. Now, somebody like myself, I have the dubious distinction of having to deal with not only the external critics, the far right, but also Allah has blessed me and tested me with a large group of people who admire me and people who don't admire me, right? It's impossible for me to say something that passes the standards of every one of these demographics every single time. And I am active in multiple fields simultaneously. I preach to the masses. I teach a little bit more advanced. I teach much more advanced at the graduate level. I present in the academy. I give public speeches in front of non-Muslims. I'm invited to churches. I'm invited to events of a political nature. I speak at rallies. Last year, I spoke at the largest, pro-Palestinian rally in the country ever organized. And I was one of only 2 clerics to speak there, right? And again, if you've never spoken in a political rally, if you've never given a lecture there, a political rally, next time you see an effective speaker, go look at Martin Luther King's speech, go look at any speech in a political rally. It's not an academic class. You need sound bites and snippets that motivate the crowd. You need to inspire them. You need to say things that are going to make them go forward. That is not the context of an academic class. So on that day, we had 100,000, 200,000, I don't know how many thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people there. And smack in the middle were around 150 ultra-Orthodox Jewish rabbis from a sect called the Natura Cartae that are anti-Zionist. It was Saturday. They had walked to the rally because they cannot take the car or the bus because it's Saturday. They had walked in the sun, and they were all dressed with big, signs that, we are Jewish but pro-Palestinian, like very positive signs, right? And we have to make a point that we want the support of the people of all faiths, especially of a Jewish background, that are anti-Zionist. So on the cuff of this moment, off the spur, and I have no regrets because it's a political speech. When everybody's seeing it's dead silent, you see these people, they made their way to the front. They're literally wanting to make a point. I mean, you feel, their sense that they want to participate. And I said passionately that this is what, I forgot the wording, whatever it was. This is what Judah, these are the real, these are the real followers of Moses. That's what I said, right? These are the real followers of Moses. These are the people we need to be appreciating and thank, right? And the crowd went wild, as they should. We need to make the point. We need allies. We need to make the point. We are not anti-Jewish, we're anti-Zionist. I have no regrets. And if I would have done that again, I would have done the same thing. Subhanallah, the entire internet went abuzz by, with utmost respect, people who have never given political speeches. People who only attend their bubble halaqat and durus, and they're like, oh my God, he's validating their theology. He's saying they're going to enter heaven. What, are you serious? This is not an aqidah class. It's a political rally for Palestine, and the language used, the examples used, the rhetoric used was absolutely needed for that rally. But when you take that snippet and you feed it to a group of people that literally have nothing, well, not too harsh here, but they're not active outside. They're not active outside of their bubbles. They're literally keyboard warriors, right? An entire controversy created, and I get dragged into it, and it's actually, frankly, not even, it's a waste of everybody's time, but it is what it is. So I have to deal with, as I said, multiple groups of people that are loving to read in their snippets, and Allah musta'an. It is what it is. And I'm not asking for your sympathies. I'm very happy that Allah has blessed me to be active in multiple fields. But my point is, I am also active in the Western Academy. And I teach and I present papers. Well, I'm no longer a professor, but I do present papers, and I'm still involved, and I have an academic book. This is a peer-reviewed academic book. Had I been in the professorial field, that would have been my upgrade to full professor. I am full professor in my Islamic seminary. Had I not been, that book would have basically upgraded me to, that's an academic book. So I'm also active in that field. And in that field, I simply pointed out that according to the epistemology of the Western Academy, they have a different mechanism, and their mechanism, I understand, obviously I don't agree with it, I understand that for them, hadith does not give, definitive knowledge, because the Western Academy has its rules. And obviously, when I'm in the academy, I must abide by their rules. That's the way the world works. When I'm outside of it, which is most of my time, obviously I am a practicing Muslim. I observe obviously I'm practicing Muslim within the academy. I'm saying how I present, what I say. So I wanted to actually quickly give you a very brief introduction. What exactly is the historical critical method, and why would we as Muslims disagree with it? Simplistically, the historical critical method, the HCM, is a series of tools that was employed by groups of thinkers in the 17th, 18th, and 19th century who were trying to figure out, listen to this, how do we view the Bible when we're not believers anymore in the Bible? This is unprecedented for the Western world. If you're a Christian, the Bible is the Word of God. There were no non-Christians studying the Bible for the sake of literature. This is beginning in the 16th, 17th, especially 18th century. So what are, especially in Germany, what are people who don't believe the Bible is from God? How will they begin studying a book and give it its due without bringing in religion? So they developed techniques and methods. We call these techniques the historical critical method. And there's multiple strands within it: textual criticism, redaction criticism, form criticism. You have multiple theories within it. And where did the Bible come from? Who authored the Bible? I mean, if you're a Christian, you're going to say God. Well, obviously, if you're not a Christian, where did it come from? How do you begin this type of research? This is what the historical critical method began to do. And of course, eventually, what happened was a number of fields were formed within this historical critical method. And by and large, here's the irony, we as Muslims would agree with the conclusions that they have about the Bible. They now know, and we all know, the Bible was authored over many centuries. There's not just one author. It was redacted. They now know there's something called form criticism. There's something called, so for example, there's a thing, what did the quote-unquote authors of the Bible actually intend, and how did later Christians misinterpret? And one of the things which we love, which is correct, the phrase when Jesus says, I'm the Son of Man, I'm the Son of God, right? Biblical scholars in the Western Academy point out what later Christians derived is not what the original authors intended. And for us as Muslims, like, yes, that's exactly what we say. Jesus never said he's the Son of God. Jesus never said he is divine. So my point is that philosophy, it kind of sort of worked with the Bible. And by and large, the Western Academy has demonstrated that its paradigm is valid on these other books. Now, 100 years ago, when the Academy turned its attention to the Qur'an, well then what are they going to use? The same tools they've derived for the Bible, they're going to apply to the Qur'an. And then 60 years ago, 70 years ago, they began applying it to the Hadith as well. And of course, this is where we will have to say, we will not agree with those tools on our faith tradition, because those tools are not neutral. There is no such thing as ultimate neutrality. Those tools have other biases. They're coming from a non-faith-based paradigm. And so, for example, one simple example, they would never consider an explanation of anything to be, well, because Allah did a miracle. That's not something the Academy can take into account. So a simple example, one of the main areas of research in the Western Academy is about the stories of the Qur'an. They love it. I also love the stories of the Qur'an, but I preach very differently. What does the Western Academy care about the stories? For them, the stories represent the clues that they need to figure out where the ideas of the Qur'an came from. So they're going to find a story in the Old Testament, a story in the Syriac legends, a story here and there, and they're going to say, oh, this is obvious, therefore, that the author or authors of the Qur'an were influenced by this legend, this story, this, that. And that's their explanation. Now, obviously, this is a secular explanation, because what they're ignoring is the most obvious explanation for a believer, which is, well, the reason why there's parallels is because the source is the same. That's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The reason why there's a story of the flood in the Old Testament and the flood in the Quran, the reason why Moses is here, the reason why Isa, and of course it gets more complicated because there are some stories of Jesus that are not found in the New Testament, but they are found in what are called apocrypha, books that did not make it to the New Testament. So they were not known to the most of mankind. So, for example, the Quranic story of Jesus speaking from the cradle. This is not in the New Testament. It's not there. Where is it? It's actually found in one of the Apocrypha, which was only discovered, 80 years ago in some grave in Egypt, the Coptic Bible, the secret Coptic Bible, right? It was discovered in that one. How would a man in Mecca have access to that Bible when the majority of Christians didn't have access to it? You understand, this raises a lot of questions, right? For us, the answer is pretty obvious. And that is, it actually happened. And so that Bible recorded a version, and the Quran also recorded a version. It's not exactly the same because Christians didn't get it fully right, but the concept of Jesus speaking as a child is in that version. And the Quran has Jesus speaking as a child. You get my point here, right? The Western Academy would never allow for what? For a divine explanation. So they have to make up in a different way. And it's pretty obvious to me. I mean, when they're not going to accept the Qur'an to be from Allah, why would they accept hadith to be from the Prophet? It's like, it's obvious to me. I personally don't think I said anything that controversial, but I understand it is what it is. Let me give you an example. My first exposure to hadith studies in the Western Academy, this is literally 21 years ago. I was taking my first class, literally my first class, meaning the semester, not the first day, but the semester we take. And of course, you're introduced to the Western method in the first class, obviously, right? And our professor, his name is Professor Gutas, you could look him up. Our professor at the time, we had to do an isnad analysis. So we go over and we do bring all the chains. So he's teaching us the Western, isnad system. And I forgot, it's been a long while, but I forgot which hadith, but basically it converged on, I want to say Sufyan al-Thawri or Malik ibn Anas. I forgot which of the giants. So we had like 10 chains. And all of the chains, they went all the way back to, let's just give an example, Imam Malik, and then Nafi', and then Ibn Umar, then the Prophet ﷺ. Okay? So we clearly found all of these books and all of these chains are going back to Imam Malik, and then from Malik to Nafi' to Ibn Umar to the Prophet ﷺ. So he began, speaking like this, that, so the common link is Malik, the source is Malik, the origin is Malik, speaking like this. And I'm straight out of Kulliyat al-Hadith in, Medina. And I just ask a very naive and awkward question because I'm not figuring out what he's saying. What is he saying? And I literally asked him point blank, are you insinuating that Malik ibn Anas just fabricated the hadith out of thin air? Are you insinuating that if all these chains link back to him, that he is because you're calling him the origin, the source, the common link, right? And he just looks straight at me and he goes, I never forget this. Well, prima facie, that cannot be ruled out. Meaning, that is a logical possibility, yes. And at that stage, I literally said, I need to do my PhD in Hadith studies, not Ibn Taymiyyah. For a few months, I wanted to do my PhD in Hadith studies. Because I didn't even know how to respond, because the blasé attitude, yeah, maybe Malik just fabricated, a hadith about the Prophet. See, this is the fundamental difference. The historical method, it begins with the premise of skepticism. It doesn't understand the reality of Iman. And I get it in the sense, guys, when I say I get it, it's not an endorsement. Like when the Quraysh came to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, and they said, do you know that your companion is claiming that he went to Jerusalem and he came back the same night? Do you believe him? What did Abu Bakr as-Siddiq say? Did he start quoting Einstein in quantum physics and start proving with mathematical equations that speed, travel, light is travel? Did he start trying to prove scientifically? Or did he just say, look, I know you won't get it, but I get it. This is what I'm saying. It's logical to have Iman. It's not illogical. It's logical. When you have Iman, you understand Imam Malik would not, it's impossible for Imam Malik to fabricate just off the top of his head. But when you don't have Iman and you don't understand the repercussions of Iman, you've never really lived in a bubble of Iman, then the evidence to you would suggest when it's going through Malik and there's no other person, just suppose there's no other person except, Malik. And there are a number of hadith like this that they go through chains to the tabi'un or whatever like that. So your assumption then from your paradigm would be, well, the source is, Malik. So my point is that the context of the question that I was asked coming from a secular paradigm, and I simply pointed out factually, I get it from the Western paradigm. They will only go so far, and then it's a trust issue, which I firmly agree with. I mean, another issue is we have in Islam something called the status of the companions being adalat al-sahaba, meaning companions of the Prophet ﷺ will never lie about the Prophet ﷺ. Now, is this a faith-based or an empirical-based claim? Which of the two is it? I'm asking you. It's faith-based. It's faith-based, right? From their perspective, literally, I'm giving an example that there is a tradition about obeying the ruler. And they will literally say, well, this is very convenient, that he's the ruler and he's narrating a tradition of obeying the ruler. I'm just giving an example, right? They would say this. They don't understand the concept of adalat al-sahaba. They don't have that iman. So when I factually point out, obviously, I get it. Some people wanted me to be more, but this is not me. For me, this is not the context. The interview is 2 hours long, and at the very end, they asked this question. I simply factually stated there are two different paradigms in this regard. If you want to study this reality about the historical critical method and its own assumptions and biases, this is a very interesting topic. Maybe one day, I do plan to one day talk about it in a library chat. Obviously, well, by the way, if you want to read, in my opinion, the biggest name in this field, it is Talal Asad. Talal Asad, the son of Muhammad Asad. Muhammad Asad, if you know his famous biography that he wrote, The Road to Mecca, his son Talal Asad is a genius, really, and he's written a number of books where he demonstrates the academy is not neutral. The academy has its own presumptions. Nobody is neutral here. You have others as well. Wa'il Halaq is another name. Saba Mahmoud in her own way has done this. Joseph Lombard. There's a number of people that have written some good articles that deconstruct the presumptions of the academy. And, maybe one day I'll also talk about that as well. But I want to make a clear statement here. I'm trying to teach you to think long-term and critically. One of the issues that I have, I don't believe in simplifying or sugarcoating complex aspects. When I taught the seerah, I made a condition upon myself. Anything that's awkward by other people's standards, I'm not going to just ignore it. I don't believe that there's anything in our religion that we cannot defend. Everything we can defend it. But one of the things I feel, and this is where it gets complicated, I believe sometimes some people, many people, to defend our religion, they employ overly simplistic tactics to do so. And when they say simplistic platitudes or slogans that are factually incorrect, and they try to prove something that is correct, the critics of Islam come and they will obviously point out that what you said is wrong. And when they prove what is said is wrong, they attempt to then prove the final point is also wrong. And this is one of the reasons why there has been a number of issues or controversies about things that I've said. I don't personally believe in overly simplistic and ignoring some of the more awkward or difficult truths. And we live in a time and a place where all you need to do is one simple Google search, and you will find the exact same criticisms, the exact same, issues out there. Some of the preachers, and I get it, I'm not criticizing them. Some of the preachers, they have this good mentality of protecting the masses. They want to shelter your ears from hearing some of these awkward truths. And I get it. I don't want my kids to hear these awkward truths as well. But the problem comes, somebody should also address those awkward realities as well. Some people should preach simple, I understand, but some people should point out, guys, our hadith system is amazing and it is unprecedented and there's nothing like it. But yes, there are some aspects that require faith, and those aspects are logical and rational. I mean, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anh, after all that he's done, he's not going to lie about the Prophet. It's illogical to say this, but admit that this is a point, it's a logical leap of faith. I don't see this as illogical at all. And understand, if you don't believe in Allah, you don't believe in Iman, you don't understand Iman, then you can say Imam Malik fabricated it. It's coming from a paradigm that obviously, I understand why, but my understanding doesn't mean I'm sympathetic to it. And so when I'm operating in that paradigm, unfortunately I do have to operate in that paradigm. So you have to deal with that reality and take that into account. So bottom line that I have, and that is that I wish I could say this is the final misunderstanding, but no, it's going to continuously happen, unfortunately. I don't aim to confuse you or to cause controversy, obviously, but controversy in and of itself is a natural element of any preaching and teaching. If it's not going to happen here, it's going to happen there. And obviously, I don't want to give the Islamophobes material, a'udhu billah, but I also believe being overly simplistic is actually the fundamental problem. Because when you try to defend that which can be defended in a way that you should not defend, then the Islamophobes attack your arguments. I believe you can easily defend the sanctity of the Quran. I believe you can easily defend the sanctity of the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. But I also believe the way that many others in the da'wah scene are doing it, in my humble opinion, is that they're opening themselves up to easy criticisms of their techniques. This is why there's a bit of a clash going on. And obviously, my brothers in Islam who have misunderstood my works, I pray that Allah Azza wa Jal keeps our hearts united and we minimize this. And also, I have to say this for the record. You know these da'wah online Islamophobes, not the da'wah, sorry, the Islamophobes that are engaged with the da'wah crowd. I mean, guys, none of them are academics, really. Frankly, they're failed academics. And I'm being blunt here, not just because they're attacking me, honestly. I really think we are exaggerating their importance far more. They're really a bunch of losers. Go look at their lifestyles. Go look at some of these are like they're convicted of beating their own fathers. One of the main guys attempted to murder his own father, went to jail, and he's one of the main guys that's on this Islamophobic industry. Others are complete failures. Look at their followings. My God, an average khatira I give has more views than some of their biggest videos. I mean, guys, calm down. Really, these people, they should not even be mentioned by name. That's why I don't mention them by name by and large. They're not even actual academics. Actual academics that are studying, generally speaking, you find their discourse to be more nuanced and more precise. As for these people online, let them be. What do you expect them to do? They're not going to harm the deen. And I think we give them more attention than they deserve. But in any case, bottom line, it's not my goal to, astaghfirullah, create drama or to give Islamophobes ammunition, much less between my fellow Muslims in the da'wah field. My goal really is to defend the religion, the Quran, the Sunnah, the Seerah. But my philosophy of defending is different than many of those involved on the da'wah field. I believe to defend, you need to build more robust and more nuanced arguments. This is the point. And with utmost respect, I don't agree with much of the simplistic rhetoric. That simplistic rhetoric resonates with lots of people. I get it. But it's simply not factually correct, even if it resonates with lots of people. So when I disagree, it's not because, astaghfirullah, I'm doubting the Qur'an or Hadith. It's because to prove it, we're going to have to change and be more precise in what exactly are we defending. And acknowledge, like in the Hadith here, that and look, there's a lot to acknowledge, subhanAllah. Let them say whatever they want about that faith-based. In the end of the day, we can come back and say, factually speaking, there is no system that any civilization has developed that comes even close to isnad verification. That is a fact. We have elaborate biographies of over 10,000 narrators spanning 5 generations. Literally the entire geography of the ummah. We have a sophisticated mechanism that, okay, I admit there's an element to faith. Let's just admit that. Let's be fair here. But then once you've admitted that, once you have acknowledged and conceded there is an element that we're going to trust Imam Malik, but then say, but look at your equivalents. You guys have no names whatsoever, no asanid, no biographies. You guys have the people that wrote your New Testament, you don't even know anything about them, much less who narrated from them. You have no idea who Luke and Mark and Matthew are. You have no idea of their biographies. So, my opinion, if we can speak factually, we're able to defend in a far more robust manner. And without a doubt, the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ is an integral part of Islam, and Allah has promised to protect His religion. And I mean, again, I find it embarrassing, to be honest. I literally have to say this. Like, guys, my entire 32 years of da'wah, try to find a khutbah or lecture, I haven't quoted a hadith. Try to find a fatwa, I haven't quoted a hadith. The entirety of the seerah is what? Quoting narrations. Of course, for us, that's what we believe in. And yes, we don't need the Western paradigm. But as somebody who navigates both of them, when I'm in that circle, I'll be speaking in a manner that is conducive. One of the main points that a lot of people said I should have been more, critical or whatnot. I get it, but it's like, I've taught, when I used to teach in the university, I used to teach classes on religion. That's a part of what professors do. It's not just Islamic studies, you teach religion. And I remember one day that I said a phrase and I'm like, wow, that phrase, if anybody heard it, I'd be in a lot of trouble. I'm going to repeat it online. Let's see if trouble happens. Literally. You know what I said I was teaching an intro to religion class, right? I said, so Christians believe that Jesus is Son of God, and Muslims believe that he is a prophet of God. And then I went on. That's all. And I said to myself, if that simple phrase, which is factually correct, if somebody who has never been in a secular environment, many of the people where I had studied from, never met a Christian in their lives, never interacted with it, if they had heard that phrase and the nonchalant manner that I just said, a factually correct statement, Christians believe Jesus is Son of God, Muslims believe he is a prophet, and then I moved on to another point. If I had said that, it is so easy for somebody who has never heard a simplistic statement like that to literally accuse me of blasphemy. A'udhu billah, Allah says the mountains are going to break asunder. Allah says the earth is going to be shattered. Because literally the Qur'an says that. They ascribe to Allah that He has a son. The mountains are going to break and the sky is going to split. And that's absolutely valid. And I believe it is blasphemous to say that. But when I'm teaching an intro to religion class, I'm not giving a khutbah. And I'm sorry, brothers and sisters, but I'm going to have to say this. I want my students to raise the bar of learning. I don't want to teach you these simplistic baby food formulas. You need to understand when you're teaching in an academic setting, you're going to say these types of things because that's what is required. And I expect you to do that as well. And we want Muslims in the academy. We want Muslims everywhere else. And that's a part of the new discourse that's going to happen. Just like when the far right takes a khutbah of mine and puts it in theirs, I want you to understand. When people are giving political speeches, when people are speaking in churches and synagogues, when people are giving academic lectures, they're not going to use the language of the khutbah. I don't need to apologize for this, frankly. I need to ask you to understand that I'm not the only person. Other people are involved in multiple areas as well. So you need to start thinking about this reality and start being involved and realize that there are different categories of people that are being taught different things at different levels. As long as what is being said is factually correct, I do have a rule that I put up on myself, and that is I will never lie about the religion. Never. I'm speaking the truth. So understand this point here. Bottom line, without a doubt, my track record, as a Muslim, as a believer, there is no religion without the Sunnah. That's the reality of our faith. And the Sunnah has been preserved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the mechanisms of its preservation are valid and binding for believers. That's quite simple and non-negotiable. We understand why, and we should take pride in it. Those who don't believe in Allah, those who don't believe in the Qur'an, those who don't believe in the Messenger, obviously, we understand they will not agree to our epistemology in spite of how rigorous it is, because there are aspects that are faith-based. So I hope that inshallah ta'ala that is understood and answered.